You didn't stumble into this video by accident. You didn't just scroll until something bright caught your eye. What pulled you here is a mirror, an echo of the frequency you've been broadcasting. Algorithms are only code, but code responds to vibration the same way a tuning fork responds to sound. This moment is not about chance, it's about resonance. The screen in front of you is reflecting back the quiet signal you've been sending out for weeks, maybe months, that you are ready to cross the line between waiting and winning. Think of how many times you've asked for confirmation. You check your phone, you glance at the clock at a strange repeating number. You feel the urge to interpret small coincidences as signs. And while those signs are meaningful, they aren't the ultimate proof. Proof doesn't arrive as data points lined up neatly in a row. Proof arrives as presence, the way your chest feels open right now, the way your breath slows even as you listen. That's the real signal, your body preparing itself for reception. Winning at this stage isn't about landing the job or receiving the message in your inbox. Those are byproducts. Winning here means you've finally stepped into the posture of someone who receives. Imagine standing at the finish line with medals dangling. But the victory doesn't come from the medal object, it comes from knowing you endured the course and stayed present until the end. That's what this frequency is offering. Most people miss it because they expect victory to look like confetti. They expect the door to swing wide in obvious spectacle. Instead, what actually happens is quieter. A friend calls out of nowhere. A stranger echoes words you were just thinking. A sudden wave of peace settles into your spine. These are not maybe moments. They are the subtle confirmation that the quantum field has already rearranged on your behalf. And now your task is simply to notice. You've been conditioned to search outward, to treat external validation as the litmus test of progress. That's why people keep refreshing their accounts or waiting on the buzzing phone. But the real win begins when you flip that script, when you recognize that presence itself is evidence. Think of water coming to a simmer. The pot doesn't announce itself with fireworks. The proof is in the rising steam. You are that steam right now, evidence of heat building beneath the surface. So how do you embody this presence? Start with something simple. Unclench. Right now. Let your shoulders drop a few centimeters. Release your jaw. Notice how much you were gripping without realizing. This is the body's version of loosening the rope on the finish line. You don't need to drag victory across the threshold. You just need to let enough slack in the rope for the outcome to step through on its own. In quantum language, they call this the collapse point, the instant where infinite potentials converge into one lived experience. But collapse doesn't feel like an explosion, it feels like exhale. The universe doesn't require you to prove your worth at this stage. It requires you to stop blocking the delivery. Winning is often less about conquering and more about not interfering. This is why presence is the highest form of preparation. Presence says, I don't need to be convinced anymore. I am here. I am ready. I am not refreshing for signs. I am the sign. When you occupy that state, you stop broadcasting wanting and start broadcasting readiness. The field listens. The field adjusts. The field begins to funnel opportunities that match the frequency you're holding. Maybe you feel resistance even hearing this. A part of you whispers, but what if nothing happens? What if I'm just fooling myself? That voice isn't your enemy. It's simply the echo of old programming. The mind is addicted to searching for guarantees because guarantees feel safe. But guarantees belong to the old cycle. Presence belongs to the win cycle. They don't coexist. Think of an athlete about to take a penalty shot. If they obsess over the scoreboard or the crowd's noise, their body freezes. But if they drop fully into presence, the weight of their foot, the steadiness of their breath, the ball flies true. Winning is not the result of calculating. It's the result of coherence. You've entered this exact frequency. That's why this transmission found you. The mirror doesn't lie. The reflection here is telling you what your body already knows, that the waiting room has expired, that the door has already clicked open, and that the proof you've been seeking has shifted from out there to in here. Your task now is not to strain for evidence, but to let the evidence become you. Each unclenched muscle, each grounded breath, each moment you choose presence over panic, that is victory song. You are already standing in it. There comes a moment when the air feels charged, when everything inside you senses that you're perched on a ledge. This is the choice point. It isn't grand or theatrical. It doesn't arrive with trumpets or neon arrows. It slips in like a change in temperature, a subtle click of awareness, where you realize you can either keep clutching for proof or let yourself finally breathe. Think of how often you've reached this threshold before. You send a message and then obsessively check for a reply. You prepare for an interview and then scroll endlessly for omens that you'll succeed. You pray, you meditate, you visualize, and then you go back to your old loop of where is it, why hasn't it shown up yet? That loop is the opposite of collapse. That loop keeps potential spinning in circles. In physics, collapse describes the moment when infinite possibilities condense into one actual reality. But for you, collapse looks far simpler. It looks like softening your jaw, noticing the pressure you've been holding in your temples, realizing that your breath has been shallow and clipped. Collapse is not the cosmos demanding more effort from you. Collapse is your body asking you to stop interfering. Imagine a hand clenched tight around a seed. That grip is meant to protect it, but it also keeps it from meeting soil, water, and light. Only when the hand relaxes can the seed fall into its proper environment and begin to grow. Your desires work the same way. Your constant checking, your desperate grip on outcome, is the hand squeezing the seed. The collapse point is reached not when you prove yourself, but when you open your palm. This is why the choice point is so vital. You stand before two doors. One door leads back into the loop of hunting for evidence, tightening and pushing. The other door leads into release, where you allow the reality to take form without your constant interference. Choosing the second door doesn't mean apathy. It doesn't mean abandoning your goals. It means choosing a frequency of readiness over a frequency of lack. Here's a simple micro practice you can try right now. Pause and inhale through your nose for 4 counts. Hold that breath for 2 counts. Then exhale slowly through your mouth for 6 counts. As you exhale, imagine the tension draining from your shoulders. Repeat this cycle 3 times. Notice the difference in your body. This isn't just relaxation, it's coherence. Each breath signals to your nervous system that you are safe, that you don't need to grip. That readiness is enough. Another everyday translation of collapse, think of a camera coming into focus. Before collapse, the image is blurry, uncertain. Your instinct might be to shake the camera or push buttons frantically, but the wise photographer holds still. They let the lens adjust, allow the autofocus to settle. That patience produces clarity. Your life works the same way. When you stop rattling the lens, the picture snaps sharp. The temptation to hunt for signs will always knock at the door. Your phone will buzz, your mind will whisper, check, check again, just once more. Recognize that impulse as old conditioning, not truth. Real signs don't need to be hunted. They appear naturally when you are calm enough to notice. The right text, the aligned opportunity, the undeniable synchronicity, all of it flows when you've stopped frantically tugging at the thread. This is the irony of manifestation at the edge of breakthrough. The closer you are, the more intense the pull to control becomes. It's like standing in line at an amusement park ride. The wait feels endless, but as you near the gate, your anticipation skyrockets. Some people bail out right there, unable to stand the final few minutes. Collapse happens when you stay in line, breathing through the anticipation, trusting that your turn is already guaranteed. So practice loosening, practice lengthening, practice choosing presence instead of panic. Each unclenched muscle becomes an invitation to the field. Each softened jaw becomes a doorway. Each slow breath becomes a bridge. These micro acts of surrender are not small. They are the mechanics of collapse translated into your everyday body. And when you practice this enough, something profound begins to happen. You notice readiness itself has a texture. It feels like warmth in the chest, ease in the belly, space in the mind. From that place, you stop asking, when will it come, and start realizing, I am already aligned with it. That recognition is the moment the infinite collapses into the particular. That recognition is the real win. The shift that unlocks everything isn't about chasing outcomes, it's about tuning your identity. You've spent so long trying to prove that you're on the right path, trying to manifest results, trying to push life into shape with your willpower. But the real difference emerges the moment you stop identifying as someone who is trying and begin identifying as someone who receives. Think about the language you use in your own mind. When you say, I'm trying to manifest, you're already placing yourself in the role of someone reaching for what is outside their grasp. Trying is endless. Trying keeps you on the treadmill. But when you shift to I naturally receive, the energy transforms. Suddenly, you're not clawing at possibility. You're allowing inevitability. This is not pretending, this is identity tuning. You can tell the difference immediately. A person trying to be confident stands stiff, smiles too hard, fills silence with noise. A person who is confident leans back, breathes slowly, allows pauses. The same applies to manifestation. The identity of the receiver carries an ease that no checklist can replace. The way you step into this identity begins with your mornings. The first minutes of your day are the most potent tuning fork you possess. If you roll out of bed, grab your phone, and scroll through alerts, you've tuned yourself to chasing mode before the sun is even up. But if you take just a few minutes to calibrate your body and mind, you shift into receiving mode before the world even makes its first demand. Start with posture. Before you even leave your bed, sit upright, place both feet on the floor. Imagine your spine as an antenna, lengthening toward the sky, rooting into the earth. This is not about looking perfect, it's about telling your nervous system, I am aligned, I am open. That subtle cue ripples forward into every decision. Then consider pace. How you move in the morning sets the tempo for your entire day. If you sprint from task to task, you broadcast urgency. The field reads urgency as lack. But if you move with deliberate steadiness, walking a little slower, chewing a little longer, pausing between actions, you broadcast sufficiency. The field reads sufficiency as readiness. And readiness is the identity of the receiver. Now add the 2-minute nervous system reset. It's simple, but its power is profound. Sit in a chair with your feet grounded. Close your eyes. Inhale deeply through your nose for 4 counts. Hold gently for 2. Exhale through pursed lips for 8. Repeat this cycle for 2 minutes. While you breathe, imagine your chest expanding with light as you inhale and releasing all static as you exhale. By the end, your system is calmer, clearer, more coherent. That coherence is the frequency of receiving. When you stack posture, pace, and reset, you create a trifecta that tunes your identity before the day begins. Instead of trying, you're already embodying. Instead of hoping, you're already signaling. This isn't just ritual, it's rehearsal. And like any rehearsal, it trains your body to know what performance feels like. Identity tuning doesn't stop in the morning, though throughout the day. You can check in. Am I acting like someone who is trying, or someone who receives? You'll notice the difference in small things, whether you rush through an email or take 30 extra seconds to breathe before hitting send, whether you walk into a room scanning for validation or walk in grounded, knowing you already belong. These micro choices compound into an identity that attracts rather than chases. The beauty of identity tuning is that it removes the exhausting question of when will it happen. Because if you already identify as someone who receives, then receiving isn't in the future, it's who you are right now. That shift flips the entire script of manifestation. The universe doesn't need to convince someone who already knows. It simply delivers. Think of a radio. Someone trying to catch the station keeps twisting the dial, frustrated by static. Someone tuned in hears the music instantly, even if they don't know the exact frequency. That's identity tuning. You stop fighting the dial and simply live inside the station. So tomorrow morning, test it. Sit up straight. Move with deliberate pace. Give yourself 2 minutes of breath reset. Then step into your day not as someone begging for evidence, but as someone embodying inevitability. Do it for one morning and you'll feel the difference. Do it for a week and you'll start noticing synchronicities landing in your lap. Do it long enough and you'll forget you ever lived any other way. This is what separates trying from receiving. Trying is endless effort. Receiving is a natural identity. And when you live from that identity, the outcomes you've been chasing begin chasing you. Resistance has a way of showing up right when you're closest to your breakthrough. It doesn't arrive wearing a villain's mask. It often disguises itself as busyness, clutter, or delay. You plan to meditate, and suddenly your inbox explodes with urgent messages. You commit to slowing down, and suddenly everyone around you needs something right now. It's easy to label these interruptions as sabotage, but what if they're not? What if resistance is simply a signal check, one last test of your coherence before reality locks into place? Think of it like static on a radio. The static isn't the enemy of the song, it's simply evidence that you're hovering close to the right frequency. If you panic, you slam the dial and you lose the station altogether. But if you adjust with patience, you'll land directly in the music. Resistance functions the same way. It doesn't mean you're off course. It means you're brushing up against the edge of alignment. Delay is one form this signal check takes. You've set your intentions. You've been practicing presence. And then nothing seems to happen. No response, no sign, no movement. The mind rushes in to declare failure, but pause. Delay is not denial. Delay is a pause written into the script so the field can align everything behind the curtain. The signal check is this: will you choose trust over panic? In the waiting space, clutter is another form. Suddenly your desk piles up. Your schedule feels crammed. Your attention is scattered. That clutter isn't proof that you're failing. It's a mirror showing you the exact places where your energy leaks. The signal check is, can you clear one small corner, one small piece, and remind your system what coherence feels like? And then there's sudden busyness. Invitations arrive all at once. Old obligations resurface. People you haven't heard from in months start demanding your time. This isn't coincidence. It's the field testing whether you will spread yourself thin again or choose alignment over obligation. The signal check is, can you say no, even once, to protect your frequency? Here's a practice to meet resistance without letting it drag you backward. First, name the pattern out loud if possible. Say, this is delay, or this is clutter, or this is busyness. Naming breaks the trance. It stops resistance from feeling like a personal flaw and reframes it as part of the process. Second, breathe once. Just one deliberate inhale and exhale. This seems too simple to matter, amounts to but that one breath creates a pause wide enough to choose differently. In that pause, you're no longer reacting, you're deciding. Third, choose one tiny upgrade, not 10, not a full overhaul. Just one small action that keeps coherence intact. If the signal check arrives as delay, your upgrade might be gratitude, naming one thing you appreciate in the stillness. If the signal check is clutter, your upgrade could be clearing the corner of your desk, just enough to feel order again. If it's busyness, your upgrade might be sending one simple message that says, "I'll respond later." That's it. One upgrade is enough to shift the whole field. When you treat resistance this way, something remarkable happens. Instead of spiraling into frustration, you begin to see resistance as a sign you're close. You interpret static as proof that the music is nearby. And because you're not fighting the signal, your energy remains intact. Remember, sabotage drains. Signal checks train. They train your nervous system to stay coherent under pressure. So when the breakthrough arrives, you're not overwhelmed by it. You're ready to hold it. So the next time life feels like it's stalling, the next time your schedule erupts with chaos, the next time your environment clutters itself overnight, don't declare defeat. Pause. Name it. Breathe once. Choose one tiny upgrade. That single choice keeps the line clear, keeps the station tuned, and keeps you aligned with the reality waiting to collapse into your experience. Resistance isn't here to stop you. It's here to sharpen you, to refine your frequency, to make sure that when the door swings open, you're not just stumbling through, you're walking in steady, coherent, and fully prepared to live inside the win you've been calling in. Imagine your future self standing just a few steps ahead of you, holding a tuning fork. Each time they strike it, the vibration hums through the air, searching for resonance. You, right here in this moment, are the instrument that begins to quiver in response. This is future self-navigation, not a mystical guess, not an abstract dream, but a lived vibration calling you forward. In the past, people have tried to explain this with complicated words like entanglement, but the tuning fork image makes it simpler. One fork strikes, the other begins to sing. Your future self has already struck the note. The question is, are you listening for the hum in your bones? The signals don't always come as lightning bolts. They arrive like breadcrumbs scattered on your path, inviting you to follow with trust. To keep this simple, use what I call the 3-signal rule. First, notice the inner nudge, that quiet pull inside that says, pay attention. It might be an idea that keeps returning, a sudden thought that feels oddly alive, or a whisper you can't shake. That's signal 1. Next comes the outer echo, something in your environment that mirrors the nudge. Maybe you overhear a stranger using the same phrase you've been turning over in your mind. Maybe a book falls off a shelf, or a headline grabs your attention. That's signal 2. Finally, feel for bodily ease, your system's way of confirming alignment. When you picture taking the step, does your breath deepen? Does your chest loosen? Even if your mind races with doubt, does your body exhale in recognition? That's signal 3. When all 3 align, the nudge, the echo, the ease, you've received guidance from your future self. Think of these signals like a constellation. One star alone might not mean much, but when 3 points connect, you see the pattern. Following these constellations of guidance is how you walk the bridge between who you are now and who you are becoming. Of course, your rational mind will want to dismiss this. It will say coincidence. It will say you're reading too much into it. But remember, your rational mind has been trained to only trust what can be measured, while your future self speaks in resonance, not statistics. The hum of a tuning fork doesn't show up on a graph, yet you can feel it vibrate through your chest. That feeling is evidence enough. Here's a practice to anchor this navigation system. Keep a small notebook or open a simple document on your phone labeled signals. Each day, record the nudges you feel, the echoes you notice, and the ease you experience. Don't analyze them in the moment. Just record. Over time, you'll see the breadcrumbs connect. You'll see patterns forming guidance, weaving a thread through your days. For example, you may jot down, felt an urge to reach out to an old friend. Later, heard their name mentioned twice in random conversations. Imagined sending a message, felt a surprising calm. That's a 3-signal constellation. When you follow through on it, you often find that doors open in ways you couldn't have engineered. The journal isn't just a record, it's a trust amplifier. When you look back after a few weeks, you'll realize how many signals were right there all along. You'll see how often the breadcrumbs led to meaningful connections, surprising opportunities, or simple moments of grace. This strengthens your ability to trust the guidance in real time, without hesitation. Following your future self doesn't mean you'll never face uncertainty. It means you'll have a compass that points toward coherence even in the fog. You won't always see the entire path, but you'll know the next step vibrates true. That's enough. The field doesn't require you to leap across the whole river just to step onto the next stone. So pause and ask yourself right now, what was the last inner nudge I ignored? What outer echo has been repeating around me when I picture taking that step? Do I feel a hint of relief in my body? That's your future self striking the fork again, waiting for you to hum in response. The more you listen, the more fluent you become in this language of resonance, and soon, guidance won't feel mysterious at all. It will feel like music you've always known by heart. Action is not the enemy of manifestation, but not all action carries the same frequency. Some actions amplify the signal of your receiving identity, while others scramble it. The difference comes down to this: effortless versus forced. Picture yourself standing beside a river. The current moves with steady strength, carrying leaves, branches, and whole logs downstream without effort. That current is the flow of aligned action. When you step into it, the movement feels natural. You're still participating. You walk, you paddle, you adjust, but the river carries most of the weight. Now imagine swimming upstream against that same current. Every stroke burns your muscles. Every meter feels like a battle. That's forced action, pushing, straining, trying to make something happen from fear or impatience. It drains you, and worse, it broadcasts to the field that you don't trust the flow. Your body knows the difference. Effortless action feels like a green light, a subtle lift in your chest, an ease in your breathing, a sense of this belongs. Forced action throws up red flags, tension in your jaw, shallow breath, tightness in your stomach. Learning to distinguish the two is what I call decision hygiene, cleaning up the way you move through choices so you stop polluting your frequency. Start with something simple: emails. When an invitation or request appears, notice your immediate body response before your mind leaps in with logic. Does your chest expand, even slightly? That's a green light. Or does your stomach clench? That's a red flag. Decision hygiene means honoring the signal. If it's a green light, respond promptly. If it's a red flag, pause before you commit. Even a short delay can save you from swimming upstream. Now, apply this to money moves. Maybe an opportunity arises, a course, an investment, a collaboration. Effortless action won't always feel like giddy excitement. Sometimes it feels like a quiet yes, a peaceful knowing that you can step forward without fear. Forced action often comes with urgency, a frantic voice saying, "Do this now or you'll miss out." That red flag is your system telling you to pause. The river never threatens you with scarcity. The river simply flows. Relationships follow the same principle. When you're about to call, text, or meet someone, check your inner signals. Does your body relax at the thought, "That's a green light"? Do you feel dread or heaviness? That's a red flag. Decision hygiene here means respecting the difference. Don't ignore the heaviness by rationalizing. I should. I have to. They'll be upset if I don't. Forced action in relationships not only drains you, it muddies the field between you and others. Effortless action keeps the channel clear. You don't need to overanalyze every step. You simply need to ask, is this the river carrying me? Or am I thrashing upstream? That single question can transform how you navigate your day. There's a subtle paradox here. Effortless doesn't mean passive. It doesn't mean you never work, never sweat, never push past comfort. Athletes still train hard. Musicians still rehearse for hours. Parents still wake up at midnight to care for their children. But aligned effort carries a sense of rightness, even when it's physically demanding. It feels like you're cooperating with something larger, not battling against it. Forced action, on the other hand, always carries the aftertaste of depletion and doubt. So here's a practice for decision hygiene before you act. Pause for 3 breaths. With each inhale, notice your body's natural response. With each exhale, ask yourself, green light or red flag, then choose accordingly. You'll be amazed how many unnecessary struggles vanish when you honor this simple pause. Over time, you'll notice patterns. Certain environments bring more green lights. Certain people trigger more red flags. This awareness becomes a map of your river. Following it ensures your actions amplify your signal rather than scramble it. The truth is, you don't need to force life into shape. You need to recognize when the river is already flowing in your favor, and then let it carry you. Every effortless action you take becomes a ripple that magnifies your receiving identity. Every forced action you avoid keeps the channel clear. And when enough effortless actions stack, the current accelerates. Opportunities arrive faster, doors swing wider, synchronicities multiply. The river doesn't just carry you downstream, it delivers you to places you couldn't have reached by force. There is a phase in every transformation that feels like nothing is happening. No texts, no breakthroughs, no visible progress. This is the quiet stretch. Most people misinterpret it as emptiness or failure. But what if it isn't empty at all? What if it's the sacred night garden, where seeds gestate before breaking through the soil? Picture a garden at midnight. The soil looks still, but beneath the surface, roots are weaving, stems are forming, life is pressing quietly toward daylight. That's what the void really is, a gestation chamber. The universe has already received your signal. Now it's arranging what you've asked for, beneath perception. In a field your eyes can't yet measure. The silence is not absence. The silence is incubation. Guarding coherence in this phase is everything, because without external feedback, your mind starts grasping for proof. You scroll through feeds, check messages, look for any hint that something is moving. That search leaks energy. It collapses coherence too soon, like pulling a cake out of the oven before it's risen. The night garden requires patience, so you learn to hold coherence without confirmation. That means not abandoning your practice simply because nothing obvious is happening. Think of a musician tuning their instrument before a concert. They don't stop tuning just because the audience hasn't arrived yet. They keep the string taut, the pitch steady, so that when the curtain rises, the music flows pure. Practical ways to hold coherence begin with short digital fasts. Take a few hours in your day, morning or evening, and cut off the constant feed of external noise. Turn your phone face down, log out of the apps that keep you hunting. Let your nervous system detox from the demand for instant confirmation. Even a 2-hour break resets your frequency and signals to your system that you are not desperate, you are ready. Next, set clean boundaries. The quiet stretch often lures old patterns back into your orbit. Draining conversation, unnecessary obligations, distractions disguised as opportunities that protect your garden. A simple "not today" or "I'll get back to you later" is not avoidance, it's nourishment. Each time you preserve your energy, you water the soil, and then close your day with a one-line evening receipt of grace. Before you sleep, write down a single sentence beginning with "Today I received." It doesn't need to be dramatic. It could be, "Today I received 5 minutes of peace on my walk," or "Today I received clarity about what drains me." This practice trains your awareness to keep noticing the subtle blooms that are already emerging in the night garden. The more you practice this, the more you'll realize the quiet stretch is not lifeless. It's rich, fertile, and deeply alive. The challenge is that it doesn't give you instant applause. It asks you to trust the unseen choreography. It asks you to remain coherent even when no one else is clapping, even when no sign has arrived yet. And when you can stay steady here, you develop a resilience that can hold abundance without collapsing under it. You're no longer addicted to constant external proof. You've built the inner muscle to stand still, to listen, to receive without chasing. That is the true mark of someone who is ready. So if you're in the quiet stretch right now, stop calling it delay. Stop calling it failure. Call it what it is: gestation. A night garden where roots are spreading. Unseen but unstoppable. Protect it with digital silence, with clean boundaries, with your one-line receipt of grace. Because when the soil finally cracks open and the sprout emerges, you'll know it wasn't sudden at all. It was the inevitable result of what you chose to nurture in the dark. Every transformation has a tipping point. Energy builds quietly, like pressure behind a dam, and then one day the barrier gives way. To outsiders, it looks sudden. A promotion, a relationship shift, a financial breakthrough, a personal awakening. But you know better. You've felt the gradual stacking of choices, the daily tuning, the breath practices, the clearing of static. What looks like an overnight flip is actually the release of threshold energy. Threshold energy is the invisible momentum you've been gathering in the background. Each time you chose presence over panic, each time you caught a breadcrumb from your future self, each time you loosened your grip instead of tightening it, you added weight to the threshold. Eventually, the structure can't hold back the flow any longer. Emergence happens. Think of boiling water. For minutes, it looks unchanged. Then suddenly, bubbles roar to the surface. That moment wasn't random. It was the culmination of consistent heat reaching a precise tipping point. Your life is no different. The flip feels sudden because the field reorganizes at once, but the emergence was always seated in the quiet stretch. This is why pre-flip rituals matter. They're not about forcing the breakthrough. They're about preparing the landing zone so that when the energy spills over, you're not caught off guard. You're ready to live inside the new baseline. One ritual is tidying the landing zone. This could be literal clearing your desk, organizing your finances, making space in your closet. Or it could be symbolic releasing an old habit, decluttering a draining relationship, letting go of the language that keeps you small. Tidy spaces signal to your nervous system, I am ready to hold more. When the flip comes, you'll have room for it. Another ritual is rehearsing receiving. This means practicing now the identity you'll carry after the threshold is crossed. Walk as though the answer has already arrived. Speak as though support is already surrounding you. Move through your day with the quiet composure of someone who belongs in abundance. You're not pretending, you're training your nervous system to normalize the new frequency so it doesn't reject it when it arrives. And then there's choosing language that fits the new baseline. Words are signals. If you keep speaking the old story, I'm trying, I'm waiting, I'm struggling, you tether yourself to the pre-flip vibration. Begin shifting into present tense language that reflects the reality you're stepping into. I am supported. Opportunities are meeting me. I receive with ease. At first, it may feel unnatural, but your body will catch up. Language is a tuning fork. Strike it enough, and your whole system vibrates with its tone. The beauty of threshold energy is that once the flip begins, it cascades. One shift opens the door for 10 others. You land the job, and suddenly your confidence transforms how you show up socially. You release one toxic pattern, and suddenly your health begins to improve. The field doesn't operate in silos. Emergence in one area spills into others. Of course, the mind will still be tempted to call it luck, coincidence, or miracle, but deep down you'll know this was the harvest of every small choice you made along the way. You built this threshold. You rehearsed for this emergence. You created the conditions where suddenness could occur. So as you prepare for your own flip, ask yourself, what can I tidy? How can I rehearse receiving? Which words am I ready to retire, and which am I ready to adopt? These are not trivial exercises. They are the rituals that align your frequency with the inevitability of emergence. And when the moment arrives, and it will, you'll recognize it not as surprise, but as recognition. You'll say, of course, I've been preparing for this all along. What happens within you doesn't stay contained inside you. Every shift you make ripples outward into what can only be called the collective field. When you tune your identity, when you practice coherence, when you walk through resistance with presence, you don't just change your own trajectory. You clear brush from the path so others can walk more easily behind you. This is why personal upgrades are never only personal. Imagine a dense forest where no one has walked before. The first person cuts a trail, struggling with vines and thorns, but the second person, their path is lighter, and the third lighter still. Each step you take with integrity becomes a path visible to someone else who is ready. You might never meet them, but they'll feel the opening you've carved in the collective field. This is also why attention and speech matters so much here. Your attention is currency in the quantum economy. Wherever you place it, you magnify. If you scatter it across fear, gossip, or endless distraction, you amplify static in the field. But if you direct it toward presence, gratitude, and integrity, you amplify coherence not only for yourself, but for everyone connected to you. Speech works the same way. Words are tuning forks. Each sentence you release vibrates in the field longer than you realize. When you speak with integrity, clear, grounded, aligned, you give others permission to speak with integrity too. But when you slip into exaggeration, complaint, or empty promises, you seed distortion that echoes further than you intended. Holding your words clean is not about perfection, it's about stewardship. The collective field responds to the tone you carry, not just the message. Now let's talk about gratitude. Too often it gets reduced to a tool, say, thank you so you can get more. That's strategy. And strategy carries the subtle vibration of manipulation. True gratitude is recognition, not transaction. It's looking at your life and saying, I see the generosity of this universe, right here, right now. When you practice gratitude as recognition, you stop trying to leverage it. You simply align with the truth that the field is already abundant. Contribution flows naturally from this place. And here's the key: contribution without performance. It's not about broadcasting your good deeds. proving your worth, or seeking applause. Contribution can be as simple as sharing a kind word, supporting a friend in silence, or holding a calm frequency when chaos swirls. These small acts reverberate in the field far more than staged displays. Authentic contribution amplifies coherence. Performative contribution feeds distortion. So pause for a moment and reflect. What kind of imprint are you leaving in the collective field? Every choice, every word, every focus point adds to the shared resonance. When you lift your own frequency, you help lift the frequency available to others. This isn't pressure, it's privilege. You get to participate in building an atmosphere where miracles feel normal. One practical way to anchor this awareness is a daily check-in. Ask yourself, did my attention today feed static or clarity? Did my speech create resonance or noise? Did my gratitude come from recognition or strategy? Did my contribution flow from love or performance? You don't need to judge yourself harshly. Simply noticing recalibrates the signal. The more you practice integrity in these areas, the more you'll see evidence of collective shifts. People around you will begin opening in ways they didn't before. Strangers will comment on your calm presence. Friends will ask how you navigate stress so differently. Without even trying, you'll have become a lighthouse in the field, casting light that helps others steer without ever needing to shout instructions. This is the larger story unfolding. Your breakthrough is not only for you. It's for every person whose path intersects with yours, and for countless others you may never meet. Each upgrade you embody sends ripples into the collective sea, where resonance multiplies far beyond what one mind can track. Your responsibility is simple. Hold integrity with attention and speech. Practice gratitude as recognition, not strategy. Contribute authentically without performance. Do this, and your life becomes more than personal evolution. It becomes a field of coherence others can step into. Every journey arrives at a doorway. You've circled the signals, practiced presence, tuned your identity, and held coherence through the quiet stretch. Now the threshold stands in front of you not as some abstract idea, but as a lived invitation. Crossing it doesn't require fireworks. It requires alignment, distilled into simple, deliberate choices. Think of this doorway as a 24-hour sprint of coherence. Not a marathon, not a lifetime vow, just one focused day where you declare with action that you are ready. The field responds to clarity. When you concentrate your energy for even a single cycle of sun and moon, you set momentum in motion. Here's the framework: one decision, one conversation, one environment tweak. These three anchors ensure you're not just thinking about alignment, you're embodying it. First, one decision. Choose a single choice you've been postponing, one that pulls you toward the identity of someone who naturally receives. It doesn't need to be dramatic. It could be committing to rest rather than overwork. It could be choosing to apply for an opportunity instead of hesitating. What matters is that the decision reflects your receiving identity. When you make it, pause and acknowledge, I just crossed a doorway. That awareness imprints the action into your field. Second, one conversation. Words shape resonance. So dedicate one dialogue today to reflecting your new baseline. Maybe it's telling a friend, I'm choosing to trust timing. Maybe it's finally setting a boundary that protects your energy. Maybe it's simply voicing gratitude without expectation. Let the conversation serve as a tuning fork, ringing out the frequency you now embody. The universe loves to hear its echoes spoken aloud through you. Third, one environment tweak. Adjust your surroundings to match the reality you're calling in. Clear a corner of your space. Replace an object that carries old energy, or rearrange something so it reflects openness rather than stagnation. This small shift communicates to your subconscious that the old setting no longer defines you. Your environment becomes a mirror of the identity you've already stepped into. When you layer these 3 acts in a single 24-hour period, you create a microcosm of alignment, decision, conversation, environment, mind, voice, world, all in sync. That coherence is what collapses possibility into reality. Crossing the doorway doesn't mean you'll never face resistance again. It doesn't mean every outcome will appear overnight. What it does mean is that your identity is sealed. You are no longer someone waiting to become, you are someone who has become. That's the pledge, not a demand for outcomes, not a bargain with the field, but a declaration of identity. I live as the receiver now. Make this pledge simple. It doesn't need elaborate ritual. It could be a single sentence written in your journal. I choose to embody the identity that already receives. Or a whispered statement before sleep. I am living as the one who belongs in abundance. What matters is that you feel it as truth in your body. The pledge locks your identity, not your outcomes. And that's the paradox. When you release the need to control outcomes, they flow more freely. When you stop asking the field to prove itself, it delights in proving itself anyway. Your only work at the doorway is to walk through not by pushing, but by aligning. So take your 24-hour sprint seriously. Choose the decision that reflects your readiness. Speak the conversation that echoes your new baseline. Adjust the environment so your outer world mirrors your inner shift. Then close with your pledge. In doing so, you cross from preparation into embodiment. Others may not notice the shift immediately, but you will. You'll feel the subtle steadiness in your chest, the calm certainty in your breath, the quiet hum of alignment in your bones. That hum is the sound of a new timeline locking into place. The doorway isn't ahead anymore. It's behind you. You've stepped through. Take a breath with me now. Slow, steady, unforced. Inhale through your nose until your chest rises just enough. And let the exhale leave your body like a quiet surrender. This is where all the pieces come together, the loosened grip, the tuned identity, the river of effortless action, the quiet night garden, and the doorway you've just crossed. You don't need to hold them separately anymore. They weave into one path of breath. Every inhale reminds you that readiness is not in the future, it's alive inside you now. Every exhale reminds you that outcomes are not yours to drag, they are yours to receive. When you wake tomorrow, you can return to this breath. Upright posture, deliberate pace, a few minutes of nervous system reset. Through this rhythm, you'll remember that collapse is not chaos, it's coherence. That resistance is not sabotage, it's a signal check. That guidance isn't mysterious. It's your future self striking the tuning fork, waiting for you to hum along. If what you've felt here resonates and it serves your alignment, consider subscribing not just to this channel, but to the frequency of coherence itself. Share this with someone you sense might be ready, not out of performance, but as contribution to the collective field. And if you'd like to anchor this shift even deeper, choose one word right now that captures the identity you're stepping into. Write it in the comments. Let it be simple ease, trust, abundance, clarity, arrival. One word can carry a frequency. One word can be a seed. Above all, remember this: you are not late. You are not behind. You are not waiting for life to finally begin. You are standing in it already, breathing proof with every inhale, broadcasting readiness with every exhale. The universe has been listening. The doorway is already crossed, and the hum you feel in your bones, that's the new timeline settling in, steady and sure. Rest in it. Walk with it. Trust it. You are already living the win you came here to claim.